What's going on, everyone? Blake Fontana here, and in this video today, there's going to be a recap and some highlights from a recent live train that I hosted inside of my free Facebook community Unleash CEOs, where we talked on all things time management, productivity, how to be more effective with your time as an online entrepreneur, and in particular, how I was able to take my business from zero to my first six-figure year in just 3 hours a day, along with an inside look at how I manage my time to this day as a multiple six-figure business owner, and how you too can perhaps use what I share in my experience and what's helped me to further help your productivity, your workflow, and further improve your efficiency and growth going forward in your online business. So dive in, enjoy, and I will see you on the inside. Got a lot of great value to share with you guys here today in this live as we dive into the topic of the most important resource that all of us have, time. And in this particular live, we're going to talk about how to make the most of the time that you have. We're going to zoom back and talk about how I was able to manage my time well in a 9-to-5 job to get my business that first six-figure year. And then also kind of how my workflow system, productivity system has developed since then, and a few key lessons that I've learned along the way that's helped me be even more efficient and productive with my time since I've grown since that point itself. So today's live is solely focused on workflow, productivity, making the most of the time that you have within your business so you can create more efficient growth going forward. Everybody that's here on the live right now, I appreciate all of you that are taking time out of your day to just sit here and hang out with me live to learn from what I'm going to share and take part in this live itself. Obviously, I appreciate all of you that hop on the replay and enjoy the replay as well, but especially appreciate those that are here on the live and with me on this live today. So as we kick off here, this is kind of going to be a little bit twofold in terms of areas we talk. I'm going to talk a little bit on my journey from being at beginner zero to get into that first 100K year. Throughout that year, I pretty much had an average of 3 hours a day to put towards my online business. I'm going to share with you what I put those 3 hours a day towards, and ultimately how I was able to make the most use of that time itself to get to where I was by the end of the year of achieving that first 100K milestone. Then from there, we're going to talk about beyond that, as you continue to grow to your first 5K month, first 10K month and beyond, and you start cranking past the trajectory of breaking past that 100K year, we're going to talk more about systems within this, how to further optimize your workflow, how to further improve your performance, as well as a few performance tricks that I follow each and every day to help me show up in my business at the highest level possible. And again, all of this that I'm sharing here in this live, simply my personal opinion through my own experiences, my own learnings, through reading a variety of books, through investing in a variety of different mentors, including my own performance coach, as well as trying a lot of different stuff over the last series of 6 years, honestly, with this topic itself. So a lot of experience and knowledge to share on this, but all this is coming through my own personal experience and opinion. And when we get into this topic of especially like morning rituals and habits and stuff like that, I'll share with you guys some ins and outs of what I do. But again, a lot of this stuff really is dependent upon what you find is most effective for you in terms of order of the day that we do it, etc. So in terms of what I'm sharing for me that works with small habits in the morning, doesn't have to work for everyone. Just wanted to note that going in. But get some really good stuff to share today. Honestly, and kind of zooming back, let's start with talking on the first piece, kind of my growth and going from being at zero my first year, this was back in 2020, to achieving my first 100K year. This was throughout a time where on average, I had about 3 hours a day to work on my online business. This opened up a little bit at the end of the year because basically my first 8 to 9 months of that year itself, this was my side hustle. I was doing this on the side while still working for my family business as director of marketing and head of sales there. So I was working a retail job, doing sales, doing marketing work for them, and working the typical 8 p.m. to typically 5:30, 6 p.m. So that took up a good chunk of my day itself. And this is where, like, at these times, I know for many, like they struggle to get their business off the ground when they have this such limited time because they feel like, man, it's just not enough time in the day to do everything that these full-timers have available to do. Cool thing is we know that it's only temporary. And we have to be able to get through that phase. For those of you that are in a 9-to-5 now that need to support yourself with some sort of income as you're growing this side hustle, these are some things to consider. And then we'll talk on the full-time next. Starting from the top, the two pieces that are going to overlap with everything that we talk on here today comes back to two key things. Number one, having a clear plan to execute on. Number two, measuring the actions that we're taking towards that plan. These are two things that we emphasize greatly with what we teach and what we do inside Unleash CEOs. And the second piece, measuring the actions that we're taking, to me is one piece that doesn't have enough focus and attention on it. Too many people are neglecting this. And this is the piece that creates inconsistency in outcomes, inconsistency in results, and ultimately inconsistency within revenue and our growth as a whole. This is why many of us see we hit our first 5K month, we dip back down to 1K, back down to 2K, and kind of are on a teeter-totter, a roller coaster with our income because we don't really have a clear idea of what's driving the results and how we can repeat that into more and more results itself. A big key component of this is simply understanding how to measure the actions that you're taking and also knowing what actions to take itself. So let's simplify that a little bit here and talk on that topic to start. If we know that a plan is critical, a plan can help us understand what we're working towards, what the big picture is, as well as how we can connect all of our day-to-day actions towards that one thing. Once we have that in place and we're clear and comfortable with that, now we can show up and focus on the daily actions that help bring that plan to life. The problem is most people don't have a plan. So they want to go from 0 to 10K, but they have no clue on how to get there. So in turn, they're showing up pretty much aimlessly each and every day. They may be doing some things consistently, but they're doing them sporadically as well. And in turn, they end up doing a bunch of different things, getting some results, teeter-tottering back down below, and having really no clear understanding of what in turn is creating those results itself, like we talked on. For those of you here that are struggling with a plan or struggling with knowing what to measure actions on, we'll get more into this as we progress in the live. And as always, for those that want personalized insight and guidance with all of this and help with my team in creating a plan, feel free to reach out. I'll drop a link in the comments below at the end of the live for those of you that want to apply to chat with us on the call and see how we can help you in creating this plan and giving you clarity on a roadmap and a daily plan of action to follow and implement within your business to achieve your goals. Oftentimes, getting back to this topic of that initial stage, and we have limited time during the day itself, what we typically do when we don't have a plan, like we mentioned, is we focus on too much. We spread ourselves thin. We look at the big guys in the space, the gurus that are ahead of us, and it makes us feel like we're so far away from them that we have to be doing things like them. And on top of feeling like, man, I don't have enough time to do all those things, we still try to do all those things. And the more that we try to do, thinking that the more we do, the more we make, or the more we grow, usually the opposite tends to happen. And what I found in my own experience, prior to achieving that first growth year of 0 to 100K, I spent 3 years before that launching an Amazon FBA business, launching a dropshipping business, pursuing different marketing opportunities on the side and trying to really bring this online business to life. And I was focusing on too much. I was doing way too much. And I kept telling myself, man, the more that I learn, the more that I do, the more that I try, the more I'll be able to get to this goal of mine. And although I learned a lot through that, and I developed a lot of skills and gained a lot of perspective through it, I wasn't really chipping away at one thing. I wasn't really moving the needle forward. And all it was making me do is pretty much do circles. I'd make some progress with one thing, see a different opportunity or a different way to do things, go towards that, and continue to repeat the cycle. Until finally, I said, enough's enough. It's time to start giving myself this plan. I know I have skills. And at the time I did. I spent 3 years starting to build those skills, but I didn't know how to put those skills into motion and put those skills into an actual real business. I knew in order to do that, I needed a plan to follow, to execute on. Once I started to give myself that plan early on in that first year, this is where it really allowed me to step back and realize that, hey, now it's time to really just focus on the key actions within this plan to bring this to life. And this is where I committed to stripping away variables, stripping away the complicated layers, and focusing on simply the three most important things that will move my business forward. We're trying to get into those three things next. But getting to this topic of what we're talking on all here today with workflow, productivity, efficiency with time. For me in the morning, one of the first things that I always do, I've talked on this many times before in lives, is I review my daily planner for the day. What you're looking at here is my remarkable tablet, my digital notepad. I know Larlin's husband has one of these and enjoys these as well. I freaking absolutely love this thing. I truly have not used a piece of paper since I got it, but without digressing too much, this is what I use for my daily planner. So you can see here in the top, I have my big 3 goals, if you guys can see that. And then I have extra below. So what I switched to early on in that year was basically zooming out, looking at what are the 3 most important needle movers in the business, which again, we're going to get to here next. And in turn, committing to putting my focus just on those 3 things. And to me, in that first year of working to get to that first 50K, 100K, a lot of it's going to be putting the same pressure on the same activities, because you don't have nearly as many moving parts in the early stage of your business as you do at the stage like we're at now, where there's many more moving parts that come along with the business itself. The more you grow, the more parts come to life, the more variables are into play, the more systems are needed, etc. In the early stages, the more that we can simplify and pull back all of the complicated stuff, the more that we can put ourselves in position to create more efficient growth. This is the best thing ever, and it is very handy for the comments coming in on the planner itself. So for me, I look at that big 3 in a gamified way. So when I wake up in the morning and I have that big three in front of me, I'm always focused on number one, what is the one thing that if I accomplish this today, I won the day itself and I move my business forward? What's the one thing that will have the greatest impact? From there, I move to number two thing and number three thing. And I keep my focus on those three core things. Because what I realized prior to doing this was what I was doing was writing down a list of 8 things to do each day, giving myself a bunch of small tasks to go and check off the box and do, which felt cool, but I really wasn't putting my energy towards the most important things. And I was trying to do too much. And in turn, I was being much less efficient, much less productive. And I was feeling more overwhelmed at the time because I only had 3 hours in the day. And when you only have 3 hours, but you lay out 8 things to do, and you don't follow through with getting all those 8 things done, it leads to disappointment, it leads to you feeling down, not fulfilled, etc. So I switched to narrowing the focus to 3 things. And I made them, I like to gamify them each on a scale of points. The first thing is worth 15 points. The second thing is worth 10 points. The third thing is worth 5 points. You get those 3 things done, you have your total of 25 points. But even if you get the one thing done, that's still moving the needle forward. So this allows us to kind of temper the expectations for our day itself, really simplify and align the focus. And then if you have some extra things on the agenda on that day, like I have listed here in the planner, I like to list these as just like an additional 2 points. So you can have extra. These are more, if you get to it, they're there. But you can see here, I have them all listed as 2 additional points for each. So for me in that first year of going to 0 to 100K, there's 3 things that I found myself repeatedly writing out that big 3 each and every day, putting pressure on them each and every day. Number 1, content. And actually, I will flip this. Number 1 was probably conversations. To start, it was content. But the top 2 were content and conversations. And the third was clients. Now, why these 3 things? Number 1, I knew that in that stage, and I was quote unquote beginner. I was new to the space. I wasn't a big guru. I wasn't well known. I had to be willing to start to share and express myself in content so people could get to know me at scale. So I didn't have to just rely on me having one-to-one conversations for people to get to know me. And so I could start planting seeds and creating awareness around who is Blake Fontana, the value that I provide, and also building trust with people in my audience. And I won't lie to each and every one of you here. Like in those early stages, I questioned hitting publish on many posts. I was unsure on what to share. But at the time, I didn't really fully understand and know who my avatar was and who I was fully speaking to. I had good understanding of briefly what they were, but I didn't know them to the depth that I do now, or the depth that I did by the end of that first year itself. Which comes to the second component of this. I'm going to kind of go full circle with all these 3. But the content we know is there for a few reasons. Number 1 is there to create awareness around you, to build trust. And it's also there in the future as it becomes more dialed in and optimized to fuel our lead generation efforts. Now, in the beginning stages, when your content isn't super dialed in, you're not going to see a bunch of people reaching out to you off of it, a bunch of people commenting keywords on your post or wanting your freebies that you give away, et cetera, because you don't really know what freebies or things to put in front of them yet, because again, you don't have that knowledge on really what's most important to them. This is why I found, especially early on, conversations to be critical. Not only in the very beginning stages, but continuing to that 100K mark. Because even in the beginning, when I was learning how to effectively converse in Messenger, how to understand who I was speaking to, how to connect with them, how to get them to open up to me, how to share my offers to them, etc. All of this, not only was I developing the skill each and every day, I put pressure on this thing, but I was learning more about my audience each and every conversation that I had. And I would start to make more deliberate effort at the end of each week to not only look back at the conversations that I built the most trust with, and I felt like, man, these are people that I could see myself supporting or working with in the future, making more of an effort to follow up with them. It also helped me really understand, hey, like this person expressed to me, they're struggling with this. They're feeling stuck with this. They want help with this. And all the conversations had a few commonalities in terms of struggles that were similar across many of them, as well as a few differences. But the point is, I gathered all that information and I use this as fuel to make my content creation process more simple. So when you guys are out having conversations today, don't just look at the conversation like, man, this is just me trying to book a call or make a sale. Look at this as a way to learn, not only learning and improving your skills in the conversation itself and how to make it shorter and how to be more efficient in the conversation, but learning more about who you're speaking to, who that market is. Same with calls. There's so much you can learn on calls and conversations that you have about your market that you can use in turn to better understand who that market is and how you can serve them with your content. It has a massive impact in the early stages. So when it comes to those 2 focuses, again, the content was there to build trust, to ultimately support leads, And the conversations were there for me to, in the early stages, learn more about my audience and develop the skill. In the later stages and in the growth stages, to really create the opportunities, to build the connections, and to make the sales to take me to that first 100K a year. Again, coming back to the main point I mentioned at the beginning, I wasn't the guru or a big guy in the space at that time. And I knew that the only way to capitalize on that competitive advantage of me being in the beginning stage and realize that I do have a competitive advantage is to be more personal, more intimate. Send that extra audio message, be more personal in Messenger, build deeper trust with them, show them who I am, show them how I can help, and connect with them on a real level. That's what people can't get with bigger people, bigger folks, gurus in the space, the really, really big guys. You're more so just a number in their program. And that's something that each and every one of you below 100K now have a massive competitive advantage in being able to leverage your support, your time, and your personalized guidance and intimacy within those conversations to really stand out to that person that you're speaking to. And to me, there's no easier way to sell an offer $1,000 or more than in Messenger in the beginning stages. And there's no easier way to get to 10K months than to sell a high ticket offer in those beginning stages as well. We're going to keep this focused on workflow and efficiency with time, so we won't get too off into business-related stuff, related stuff. That's all for different lives, but that's kind of a recap of literally the 3 things I focused on in my first 100K year. Publishing content every single day, putting pressure on that thing, becoming better at it, developing the skill within it, having conversations, learning about my audience, who my people were, as well as understanding how to effectively move that conversation, effectively offer the call, effectively book the call, present offers, close deals, etc. And from there, putting out offers, clients, offering invitations to clients to work with me, as well as serving my clients itself. In the majority of the year, in the first half, a lot of it was put towards conversations and content. As I started to enroll more clients, more weight was able to be put towards that. One thing to remember here as we move on from this topic, though, on this topic of content and conversations is, like I mentioned, the early stages, content is there for more awareness and trust. And in turn, to create opportunities and to book calls, you have to put more weight on the conversations because that's the easiest way to make that happen. But as your content skills improve and as you become better at writing content, as you become better at writing content about topics that your audience cares about, you're going to see content, the lever, be able to increase to allow you to take weight off of conversations for your lead gen efforts. And in turn, as you grow, this can fuel the conversations, the offers, and the clients much more effectively than what it does in the beginning stages. Most people just don't stick with it enough or develop it enough in a way to see the benefits of that. In the core of these 3 things, what I really want you guys to, or what I would really like to get my point across on this is the importance of really focusing on habits within these, because that's the key to all of this. If we can't be consistent with the few things that we're focused on, we're not going to get to where we want to go. And this is why I want to point out to focus less on goals, especially in those early stages, and focus more on habits. It's cool to set the goal of achieving your first 100K a year, but when we just set that goal and we say, okay, now it's time to get to 100K, we often get lost in overwhelm and thought on what to do to bring that goal to life. But if we can say to ourselves, hey, we want to achieve this goal, now what are the habits that we can start developing now to put ourselves in position to bring that goal to life naturally? Now we can shift our focus to the things that we can put pressure on each and every day to develop our skills and put ourselves in position to hit that. To me, at the time, and even looking back at this now, the most important 3 things to put pressure on in that beginning stage is content, conversations, and clients. Along with that, to pair with that as well for the 9 to 5 topic, another really important thing for me, with those 3 hours in a day, I would personally, this is where it comes down to what you personally prefer in terms of distributing that time itself. So if I had 3 hours in a day and I had 3 things I was focused on, I would primarily put content first because I knew that if I could knock that out first thing in the day, it would be a massive burden off my shoulder. And I could also use that to help with conversations in the afternoon. So what I would do is if I had to work at 8, I used to wake up at 7. What I did was bump my wake up time back to 6, which would give me an extra hour to work before the day itself. That first hour of the day was solely spent on writing the post and publishing the post. Then I could go off to work knowing that, hey, I just got a piece of content out. It's published, good to go. And then I would come to work till my lunch hour at noon and have another hour. This is when I would be able to distribute that towards conversations, or at least a chunk of 30 minutes of it. So I'd be able to go out and easily initiate conversations with engagers on my post, people commenting the keyword to want the free guide, resource, or video that I came out with, the free value that I was providing. And it just gave me an easy source to come to eliminate resistance at that gap of time when I knew that now was the time to start initiating some conversations. Then at the end of the day, I could put more weight on conversations than the day itself, spend another 30 minutes to an hour. And it just made it much more efficient and streamlined for me to knock that first big domino down to start the day. Now, for some, that domino may be conversations to start. Maybe your content was super easy for you, and it is super easy for you to come up with an idea and to write in the fly. And you like to write in the afternoon, and you're better with conversations in the morning. What we want to do is be aware of how we operate best for the task that we're doing, and to me, kind of distribute that accordingly. So I know content is best for me in the morning. Messenger was best for me in the afternoon. That's the way I distributed things. That's the way I consistently created habits around to show up and do that thing consistently. And it took a lot of pressure off me. It made it easier for me to make the most of that 3 hours a day that I had. The other piece that was huge while being in a 9-to-5 was productive downtime. This goes for anybody, full-time, part-time, especially those of you full-time with family, kids, busy schedule. There's a lot of gaps in the day that we lose sight of that we can easily be super effective and get a good chunk of things done without even realizing it. Such as let's say you go out today to get an oil change. You have 20 minutes sitting waiting for your car to be done. You could easily sit on your phone for those 20 minutes, scroll through YouTube, scroll through Instagram, scroll through Facebook, or you could start 10 new conversations or publish that post or continue the conversation that you were having before or write out the next idea's content. That 20 minutes of gap in the day may not feel like a lot, but there's a lot that we can get done if we use those selectively throughout the day itself, because they end up stacking up to being 30 minutes, hour, sometimes even more a day itself that we can use to further put time and pressure into our business. So be aware of that in terms of how you're spending your day, your time each day itself, as well as what gaps you have available to leverage productive downtime as a whole. So now as we get into kind of this next topic, this is an exercise that I do often with my coaching clients periodically in terms of kind of assessing how they're distributing their time in a day itself and how we can better leverage that time to maximize the results. One thing I like to do is what I call an energy audit, and auditing the time spent. This is an exercise that I will actually pull up a post and share here now because I shared this before. And this had a massive impact on me over the last 2 years alone. I would encourage you guys I'm going to read through this now. Don't have this screen shared here on this streaming platform, but I'll read through this now. For those of you that want to take notes and write this down to do afterwards or start doing it now, great. Write a list of everything that you do on a daily and weekly basis. Everything that you can think of for your business. Could even be personal too if you're noticing that you're kind of spending more time on the personal stuff. But in this particular live, we're focusing on business activities. Write out a list of everything that you associate in relation to your business. If you're on organic, this could be friend adding. This could be content creation. This could be graphic creation. All the little things that come into life that we're putting time towards to build our brand, to build our audience, and to monetize that audience. Write out a list of everything that you do. Simplify that list to the activities that you spend the most time on. So take a highlighter out on that list and highlight all the activities that you put the most time towards itself each week, and then put a little number next to it in terms of roughly how much time each week you spend on that thing. If those of you guys are doing this now as you go through or having some ideas pop up as we continue this list, let me know in the comments here now. What do you feel that you're spending the most time on in your business? Top 3 things. If you want to share time spent on them, awesome as well, but share those top 3 things that you find you're putting your most time on. Next, highlight in a different color the select few activities that drive your business and your life the most results and happiness. Now, little caveat on this one, because those in the beginning stages trying to get their business to that first 5K, first 10K month, you may not know specifically what few activities are driving your business and life forward and making you happy. And we also know in the beginning stages that sometimes we have to do some activities that maybe don't light us up to full happiness, but we have to develop the skill and do it. Either way, if you're unsure on what those few activities are that are the most important, one great thing I would refer to is what we talked about in the beginning of this live, content and conversations. 2 activities that to me, in that first sprint of getting to those first initial 10K months, that first initial 100K year, the focus should be really doubling down on those, in my suggestion. For those of you who have ideas on what's driving your business forward now, highlight those that do drive your business forward the most. Those few select activities that drive your business forward the most, like I mentioned with those 2 that I shared early on, commit to doing more of those. Simply put, circle them, underline them, put them in front of yourself every single day, and commit to doing more of these actions that deliver results. look at the remainder of the list and ask yourself, what can I eliminate? What can I automate? What can I outsource? And what can I just eliminate and remove off of this list? And ideally, repeat these steps 1 through 5 continually. I recommend to do it on a monthly basis, something that I've incorporated into my schedule over the past year. It's been a massive help. But at the very least, do it on a quarterly basis. At the very least, I would encourage everyone to do this, because what we're doing is creating awareness around oftentimes what is uncomfortable. We don't want to be honest with how we're maybe putting our time towards things that we don't need to. But if we can give ourselves an honest inside look at, hey, this is exactly what I'm doing every week. This is exactly how much time I'm spending. It's super easy to pull out and see, hey, this is what we need to take weight off of. This is what we need to put more leverage and attention towards, and results will grow. Oftentimes we just lose sight of all the different things that we're doing, and we're spreading ourselves too thin. In point number 5, when I mentioned eliminate, automate, and outsource what you can, this will exceedingly come as you continue to grow. Some of you at the stage with your business now maybe can't afford to hire an assistant or to hire someone to help delegate certain things in your business itself. And we also know that in those early stages, there's some things we got to show up and do to develop the skill and learn it early on, such as, like we talked on before, friend adding, messenger conversations, starting conversations. These are things that, yeah, they may not light us up when we do them in the early stages. They may feel tedious and annoying. Some of you may enjoy them. Some of you may hate them. But all of you here have the option to not do those for the rest of your business future. I think this is also important to note here as we're on this topic, because I think many people in the Facebook organic world seem to think that they're stuck doing Facebook organic activities forever and ever. And they want to run away from Facebook organic because they feel like, man, I got to do messenger conversations to keep my business afloat forever. I got to add friends every day. I got to do all these things. You don't have to do all that every day for the rest of your business life. That's not the point. The point is, Facebook is a launch pad to get your business off the ground in the most efficient way possible. And the nice thing is that launch pad can continue to serve your business as you grow and as you add on more layers. So if you've now grown to 10K months and you cannot stand friend adding and you don't like initiating conversations, that can easily be something that you put into a process and delegate, so that can be off your plate and done for you. So you can put your energy more towards things that light you up and serve you. And that's the beauty of getting past that initial stage of our online business growth, because as we grow, we have more freedom to start to be more selective with how we're putting our time in, what we're putting our time towards, and really working to put our time towards more of the things that really light us up, excite us, feed us energy, and things that we are best at doing. And we can eliminate the things that we aren't now that we have the skill and the process to know how to do it. From this point, we've talked a little bit on that first 100K year growth, areas of focus, simplifying the focus to a few core things, and trying to eliminate all of the fluff that we feel that we have to do. And from there, really starting to be more conscious and aware of how we're distributing our time each day. This all works hand in hand with helping simplify this focus. One other key thing that I want to talk on in this topic is eliminating resistance in our work. This is a big one that all comes back to off the back end of what we're talking on with this energy audit. Because if you realize that, let's say, in this energy audit, you realize that to write a post or to make a video or to go live, it's taking you 4 hours to do or 3 hours to do. And you didn't really realize it until now you did this audit. Now that you have that awareness, you can use that awareness to better improve your process to doing that thing. And in turn, you can eliminate resistance in doing that activity itself. What I mean by eliminate resistance is, an example that I like to share is let's say content creation or YouTube video creation. So when you go to write a post, if you're not good at coming up with ideas on the fly, chances are, if you're planning to write a post today and you go to sit down to write the post, you'll probably spend the first 30 minutes of time pondering ideas, trying to decide what the idea is. Then you'll spend the next chunk of time trying to figure out what maybe to write the headline, and then write the rest of the post. And before you know it, 2 hours have passed to write the post itself. One simple way to remove resistance or eliminate resistance in content creation is to have a preset list of ideas ready to execute on. So if you know you struggle with writing on that idea and selecting that one idea to pick for the day, plan out in the head of the week, or at least have a list or a brain dump of ideas to come back to that you can refer to each day and say, hey, I'm going to pick one of these. I got 5 minutes to pick it. I'm picking one idea. I'm writing on this and I'm publishing. That is helping eliminate resistance in the process. We can take this a step further, and let's talk on an example with a YouTube video. So when I first started making YouTube content, I knew that I had to obviously record the video. I knew that I had to ideally get a description in place below the video, get a thumbnail in the video, put in the tags, put in the title. There's a lot of moving parts to bring a YouTube video to life. A lot of it starts with the idea, then comes into the outline of what I want to talk on in the video and recording it, all that good stuff. Also comes into play is my setup. I have a camera here. I have lights here. I got my backdrop behind me. Sometimes people won't even have their camera set up. They'll have their lights put away in the bag. They won't have their backdrop set up. They have no idea what they're making this YouTube video on, yet they have 3 hours of time blocked today in their calendar to make a YouTube video. What happens? They sit down to think about, man, what am I going to record today? They ponder ideas for 30 minutes. They finally pick one, and they realize, shit, I got to set up my equipment. So I got to set up my camera. I have to set up my lights, set up the backdrop, and then now moving on to the other things that we're thinking about having to do to bring this thing to life. The point is, by us not having things ready and having a clear snapshot of step-by-step what comes to place to bring that outcome or that video to life, it's very easy for us to fight ourselves and to get in our own way and to sit down and realize, man, I got to set up and do all of these things. I don't even want to do this anymore. And that's typically what happens. But if we had a simple step-by-step list that showed, hey, the first thing I'm going to do is have this idea selected, script out the idea, record the video. Afterwards, I'm going to get the description in place, get the title in place, thumbnail in place, and I'm going to make sure that before I do any recording that all of my equipment is in place the night before. This is priming yourself to eliminate resistance and to show up and execute on that activity and complete it in much more efficient time. So consider this within things that you're doing in your business. Messenger conversations, content creation. A lot of the things that we do are repeatable. And this is, again, why we're emphasizing such the importance of measuring the actions that we're taking. It's also important to be aware of what it takes to bring the thing that we're trying to produce to life. What are the components to making a Facebook post? Headline, body, call to action, all the different pieces, like we talked on with YouTube. We can easily break these down and make it clear for ourselves to know exactly step-by-step what we need. Another example of this is starting a Facebook group. Many people think, I want to start a Facebook group. This week is the week where I start a Facebook group. So they have down their goals for the week, start a Facebook group. But they don't have down the steps that they will complete to, quote unquote, start that Facebook group. If they went into the week knowing that this week I'm deciding on the name, I'm deciding on the description, I'm making the cover, and I'm setting up my initial welcome video, now it's super clear what they can break up and execute on throughout the week to bring that goal to life. But if they just went into the day or to the week saying, hey, I'm going to start a Facebook group, this is where they go to do that thing, and now they get pulled in all these different directions in terms of what they need to do first. But if we can lay that stuff out before, we are putting ourselves in a position to eliminate resistance and take greater action. This all comes back to systemizing processes. This is where this exceedingly becomes more and more important as we continue to grow. Like we talked on early, a lot of the times we're putting our focus on few things and becoming really good at those few things that leverage our business in a way to propel it forward. As we grow and more layers get added on, as we have our first team member, our second team member, as we roll out our own product, as we start delivering to more clients, more people buying our stuff, there's more moving parts as we continue to grow. And this is where it's critical that we're looking at how we can systemize the processes that we're doing daily. And this comes in all areas of the business. So the moment you sign up a client, this is an example I shared the other day inside of our coaching group. For you guys now that have only had 2, 3, 4 clients before, you may just try to remember at the end of it and signing up that client once they pay you, hey, I have to grant them access to this. I got to send them these links to these things, get them set up with this, all these different things that you're thinking in the top of your head that you need to do. But if you had that complete onboarding list for your client spelled out to know, hey, as soon as a client pays me to join my coaching program, these are the first 10 steps that myself and my team will follow to get them into the program and get them off on the right foot. Now everything becomes more streamlined. Things can be executed on without you being there. And you can make sure that things are being done in the way that they need to be done and things aren't falling through the cracks. This goes for every process that we have in our business, really. Whether it's onboarding a client, whether it's having a sales call with a client, whether it's creating content. All of the things that we do have a set of activities that involve to come to life, to complete that thing itself. And if we can be more clear on what exactly those parts are in between, we can break them up, we can see exactly what they are, and we can have those documented to make sure that we can follow those easily without thought and without having to remember everything off the top of our head. Truly, the key behind all this stuff is a plan to execute on and measuring our actions. I cannot stress the importance enough of measuring what we're doing each day. This is part of my daily routine. I'll get in and share a little bit more about my morning routine, and then we can wrap up with things from there and cover some questions. Do you follow a template that we can follow? Yeah, for the question in regards to, do you have a template that we can follow? Template on anything in particular that you were looking for on this, or just a template in general on what we're talking about? Let me know on that in the comments. For me, I pretty much use what I call my habit tracker as my guide for myself each day. So I have a spreadsheet that lays out morning, afternoon, evening, what the habits are that I'm fulfilling in the morning, afternoon, and evening, combining this with my business habits as well. And I found this paired with the big three approach in my big three journal and writing out my big three goals for the day to be super, super effective because, again, this gamifies the action for me. I can show up in my habit tracker each morning after the morning, tick off the boxes of the habits that I fulfilled. And then from there, that's propelling me into the next day to fill in the next boxes. And we can gamify it in a way where we're excited and encouraged to come back the next day and tick off more boxes. And we can also look back and see, hey, this month, I just had my biggest month ever online. When I look back at what I did within my habits and the actions that I took, these are what I put more energy and focus towards. Or this is what I was super consistent with. And now we know, hey, this led to this growth. I need to do more of these. I need to improve this. This is why measuring is so critical. Without measuring, we're truly guessing. I've said this before. I've said this in many lives before. A few of you have reached out to me, letting me know how much of an this kind of gives you in terms of soaking this in and giving you some perspective on this topic. And that's the fact that we can guess our way to 5K months. You guys can go out today for the next year and randomly do things on Facebook, randomly do things on whatever platform you're on. And you may walk into a 5K month or 2 or 3, but you cannot guess your way to consistent 5K months and beyond, especially 10K months. You can't. There's no way to do it because in turn, we're really just having no clue in terms of what's driving our result. But if we can see exactly the actions that we're taking and the measurements that it takes to get there, we can know, hey, this is what we can improve. This is what we can do less of. And that's the thing. Oftentimes, when we're not measuring, we're giving ourselves more work to do. When we are measuring, we're allowing ourselves to do less and achieve more. How do I manage unpredictable tasks that pop up? This is a really good question. I'm going to answer Alan's question here on how do I manage tasks that pop up that maybe you aren't expecting. We're talking a lot about tasks that we anticipate, that we're planning for, that we expect, that we know we want to put time towards. But what about the things that pop up that aren't really into that schedule or that we didn't expect to pop up? So what we see here is basically a breakdown of my workflow system. Now, it starts with number one, inbox. This essentially means I have one application that I use that I put everything into. Every idea that comes to life, every content idea. If somebody reached out to me or a client reached out to me and I want to remind myself to follow up with them. If I have to remember to make a payment for something or whatever it is, like Alan mentioned, something pops up that day that's either an idea or a pop-up task that we need to fulfill. The first thing that I always do is get it out of my head. Get it out of my head and either onto my Remarkable tablet paper or into my task management system, into my inbox. This allows me to know that I can always come back to this at the end of the day and easily see this list. I don't have to rack my brain and go to bed at night and think, man, did I forget to do this? Did I remember to do this? Did I forget to do that, etc. That is creating more resistance when we do that. A simple system to eliminate more resistance is to have something like this in place, where we know that everything that comes in through our brain comes into the inbox. From there, for me, the next thing that I do is review this inbox daily and I clear it out. So I'll look at the items in this inbox. And I'll say, what is this? And basically, when I ask myself, what is this? I'm looking to define what is this thing that I need to do. Does this take 5 minutes to reply to a message or schedule a call? Is this something that will take me 30 minutes? Is this a priority right now? Is it not? This is where I go to this next step and ask myself, is this actionable? If no, if it's not something that's a priority now, I can either push it to my later bucket, I can push it to my trash and say, hey, I'm not going to do this. Or I can push it to reference or to delegate, to pass to someone to do for me or to delegate, etc. The biggest thing is this is going through like a filtering process to make sure that I'm not just doing whatever comes into my inbox, while also knowing that I have this spot to come to make sure that I'm not missing out on thoughts or tasks for that day that popped up. If it is actionable and it is important or a priority to come in soon, the next thing I'll do is ask myself, okay, is this something that can be done in one simple step? In 5 minutes or less, or in 2 minutes or less, like I have listed here? If so, I'll likely just do it right away. If it's not, if it's something that involves some more thought, I will move this to what's called next action, and I will take some time to clarify the project steps. Just like we just got done talking on, starting a Facebook group. I could easily say, oh, starting a Facebook group is something I can do quickly this next week. Let's do it. But before I do that, I want to first make sure, hey,
what is this that I want to do with starting this Facebook group, and what are the steps that I need to follow to first bring this to life? This is where I would lay out the name, the cover photo, the description, the welcome video, setting up the group foundation, focusing on those series of tasks first to complete the project. So this is more of like a defining stage. If it's actionable and if it's more of a project-based thing that takes more time, it's important to define it and clarify what are the steps it takes to bring that. If it takes less than 2 minutes, just do it. And then from there, again, kind of coming at the end, things that make it through this point, if it's not a project that you have planned for next action to do, or if it's not something that you just did right away, it may be something that I want to delegate or defer, which from then I can move it to that point and set the instructions to do accordingly. But this just gives me a hub to constantly look and see my list of what are my next action items, what's in my inbox, and what's a priority. And this is basically the way that I manage pop-up tasks that come up along the way, as well as projects. Yeah, so let's run through a little bit. We'll end this with talking on through my morning routine. We talked a lot about key pillars to all of this when it comes to workflow and efficiency with time, but we will end things with a quick walkthrough of what my morning routine is. And again, this is subject to whatever is comfortable for you guys. Like a few of these things are going to overlap and maybe something that you can take away and implement, but do not feel the need to copy my morning routine to be just like Blake, because it typically doesn't work that way. So when I first wake up in the morning, as I mentioned, the first thing I do is I drink a good chunk of water, usually a liter of water, because my body is depleted. I just slept for hopefully 7 hours. And I know that if I get water in my system, it's going to wake up my body, wake up my organs, and get me going for the day. The next thing I do after drinking the water is I go straight to the gym. I'm a big advocate of health and fitness. This, to me, is one of the biggest drivers in my energy and performance in my business, aside from everything that we're talking on here today, and keeping me peace of mind, level headspace, and clear as a whole in terms of my brain. A lot of this comes back to working out in the morning and priming myself for the day. So I'll go to the gym. I'll do a 30-minute lift or cardio routine. It's usually not much more than 30 minutes. I keep it short and efficient, more intense, less longer hour workout. So I go to the gym at about 6:30, come back at about 7:30, usually around 7 o'clock. From there, shower, get ready, brush my teeth, all that good stuff. And the next things I do before I go into work is what I call my work startup ritual. So my work startup ritual begins with what we talked on the beginning was, if I did not set my 3 goals for the day already going into the work startup ritual, I will for sure set those. If I did, I will review those and I will ask myself, do these still 3 align? So I'll review what my 3 focuses are for the day in my startup ritual. I will then look at and lay out my schedule for the day and say, okay, my number 1 most important thing, I'm going to put this first in the day. My second most important thing, I'm going to put this here. My third most important thing, I'm doing it at this time. I will then fill in the gaps for any calls that I have scheduled that day, other activities that I already have pre-planned on the calendar. This way, I now have my calendar planned. I can show up and follow that ledger of commitments and go into the day and execute. Before I do begin any work, the first thing that I will do is I will read a simple passage from this book called The Daily Stoic. Absolutely love this. This kind of helps prime me, get me into some thought, as well as giving me a topic to journal on to start the day itself. And this really helps me focus on gratitude to start the morning. So getting me in the right headspace, getting me primed for the day. Once I read this passage, I journal for a little bit. And then from there, I move into just a quick 5-minute meditation. I've tried to do 10, 15-minute meditations before. For me personally, I found that 5 is my sweet spot, and it really helps me set into my day, be present, and ultimately roll into the first thing for the day, which is writing content and content creation. So that's typically the way that I'll start my morning. Like meditation. Yeah. So I do meditation using an app called Primed Mind. A lot of things I like about this app. This also helps with sleep too. One thing I haven't touched on is evening routine, which we won't get into all the routines here today, but I also use, again, I'm big into performance biohacking and doing all these things. So I have what's called an Oura ring. This little ring tracks all of my sleep stages, my REM sleep, my light sleep, deep sleep, how much time I slept, all the details about my sleep itself, because my goal is to optimize that in the best way that I can. One thing that I've been working to improve for me recently has been the deepness of sleep in the initial stages. I've noticed for me personally that it takes me a little bit longer to get into a restorative sleep early on. And in turn, it ends up leaving me to think that I got 8 hours, but in reality, I only got 6 hours. So this Oura ring has helped me measure and assess and see, okay, this is where my sleep's at. Now, what can I do to start improving this and improving my sleep as a whole? So again, all comes back to that importance of measurement. This has helped me change habits in my evening routine to disconnect from my electronics earlier in the night, to start reading earlier in the night. And this has started to have an impact on my ability to get into deeper sleep sooner. Still not where I want it to be, but work in progress and improving, all thanks to the data from the measurement. And along with that as well, this helps with sleep for me, as well as it helps with focus. This is the Prime Mind app. Alan was mentioning this in the comments. I've shared this with him before. This is a simple meditation app that I like to use. They have different guided meditations and practices. So there's like one on here that's let go of stress, be in movement. One that's sleep now. There's a sleep now one on there that honestly works wonders in helping put you to sleep. I highly encourage trying that out. But bunch of different prompted meditations for both morning, evening, as well as stressful situations when you're kind of feeling all over the map. These really help me stay grounded, be grounded, and kind of help me be present in the present moment itself. So Primed Mind is that app. This is one of the things as we wrap up on this topic of apps. Freaking love this stuff when it comes to productivity, workflow, and different apps like this that we're talking about here today. I have a bunch of these I like to share that I use daily as daily drivers in my business to help me be more efficient with everything that I do. And we don't have the time to get through all of these today, but I have a YouTube video planned to walk through my top 10 productivity apps that I use, not all productivity, but top 10 business apps that I use, some of which are productivity apps in that. For those of you that would like to check that out, when I release it on the YouTube channel, just comment #YouTube below. And as soon as I release that, I'll come back and link you in the comments with the video. Awesome to see 12 of you here still on with me through the end. So again, I really appreciate each and every one of you here that stick with me through this live today, hung around with me, and stuck through till the end. It means a lot to see you all here. For those of you here that want to talk personally with us about a plan to take your business to the next level and helping you kind of audit your own time, helping you understand how you can better leverage your time and start measuring the actions that you're taking to create more predictability within your growth of your coaching business, or if you're even an affiliate looking to roll into a coaching offer and create predictability within that offer and take that to 5K, 10K, 15K months, feel free to reach out to me directly. Any questions you have of this live, just mention that you watched this live today and you'd like to chat further, or feel free to just comment below and let me know as well.